what a real good life is based on is just embrace the risk. It's how you deal with it that matters.
Hey folks, welcome back. This is Mark Devine with the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. Super stoked to have you. I won't waste your time. Trust me. Before I get started with my guest today, who is Erwan Le Corre of MovNat, super cool guy, super cool conversation we're going to have. I'd like to remind you that ratings really help this show. I mean, that's how people find us. Super stoked to see that Yahoo News just listed us in one of the top eight or 10 podcasts to listen to for men, although we're not exclusive to men, but that was kind of cool. And so that helps with the ratings. So if you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, I think, our website, all these different places, Google Play, SoundCloud, wherever it is, go and rate it. Hopefully start at the right side, because at the far right, if you click that 5th star, that's enough. Just start there and stop there. And also, I mentioned last time that I've spent the last 18 months working on the new revising, updating, completely overhauling our Unbeatable Mind online training, what I first launched in 2011. And what a bear of a project that was. But it's completely overhauled. In fact, today, believe it or not, I'm putting the finishing touches on some of the written content, because I've overhauled and rewritten literally an entire book for this program and reshot all the videos and updated everything. It's an incredible program, and it lines up with our new Unbeatable Mind experience, which we're launching in March. That'll run twice a year and dovetail with the content. So Unbeatable Mind Online, brand new. Check it out at unbeatablemind.com. It's an awesome program. We just launched a webinar on it last week to discuss some of the principles of the new Unbeatable Mind operating system. It's going to be killer. And now's the time to get in if you're still wondering how you're going to transform yourself in 2019, and all those, things that you said on Christmas or New Year's Eve have already fallen apart. So it's a long-term process, at least a year for transformation in our book. Nothing happens overnight. There is no hack. You can't hack your way to integration or enlightenment or peace of mind. You got to work at it. Something we're going to talk today with Erwan about. So, well, that's that. Unbeatablemind.com. Check it out. I hope to see you there. So Erwan Le Corre is the founder of something called MovNat, or Natural Movement. MovNat, MovNat. Now, I haven't spoken to him personally about this, but I'm going to basically put words in his mouth. His mission is essentially to bring natural movement back to the world, because he believes it's been lost or forgotten. You think about how like an Apache scout would, move through the wilderness and both play, stalk, hunt, run, climb, jump, fall, roll, swim. That's MovNat, right? And it didn't just have to be an Apache. I'm thinking about like Spartan warriors, and a lot of the ways that I trained in the SEALs, running obstacle courses and bear crawls and low crawling and crab walking and doing all these crazy things, because, in combat, you've got to be in all sorts of positions and, be able to move your body in every single way naturally, so you don't spring a gasket while you're doing it. At any rate, that's my take on it. I'm super stoked to actually learn from Erwan. He's got now gyms all around the world, and you can get certified in the training and whatnot. So if you're into movement and you're into using movement for development, like we are, then Erwan's our kind of guy. Erwan, thanks so much for joining us. You're sitting in a tree right now, aren't you? And hanging from one arm.
Hey, hi, Mark, and hi, everyone. And it's not what you would expect. I am actually sitting in my truck outside my house, because I live in a small house, and I have my 2 young boys, and they would be way too loud. So, yeah.
Well,
But I have an unbelievable. Go for it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, you got a beautiful view. You told me earlier.
Yes,
You're
yes.
outside of Taos, New Mexico. That is a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is a lot of people think that a truck is natural movement these days. You want to move naturally, get yourself a big truck with a gun rack. That's natural movement.
Yeah. Flow on the. You get a flow on the highway.
with a little
Yeah.
country music playing. That's natural, man. Awesome. So before we get into like MovNat itself, because that's that's your business and that's your passion
Right.
today. Let's. I always like to kind of like get to the go back to the root. Like, what were your upbringing like? Where are you from? You have a little bit of an accent. Sounds
I
like
do. I
French
speak
Canadian
funny.
or something.
Yeah, yeah. I speak
Yeah,
funny. I'm originally from France, and
you are.
I'm actually from the French Brittany, which is the Celtic part of France. So basically, I'm more Irish, like the Irish and the Welsh and the Scots. That's my
Oh, really?
that
Interesting.
yeah, that's actually my DNA. We all come from somewhere. So I was
Yeah.
raised, and they made me believe I was French, and I, it was never the case, truly. And now I'm an American, proud American citizen after 10 years of living in this beautiful country of ours.
Nice.
And yeah, I grew up.
So you're brought up in Brittany. Whereabouts in France is the Brittany region?
So Brittany is the south, sorry, the northwest of
Okay.
France. It's just right across the channel, and across the channel you would have England, Cornwall, and Ireland, basically.
Hmm.
But I grew up in a little town where we had hills and massive boulders,
Uh
and
huh.
that it was right outside the house, and that was basically my playground until I was 10. And not
Hmm.
only I was let free to go there and pretty much anytime I wanted when I wasn't going to school, but
Hmm.
I was encouraged. My dad, my mom, we would often go and hike as a family, but then I would scale those boulders. I would climb the trees. I would jump from one boulder to the other. I would crawl
Hmm.
underneath. So that was my main hobby as a kid. That was basically
Hmm.
natural movement.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's neat. Not everyone's drawn to that though. Like we think that
no,
all humans, in a wilderness environment would be drawn to that, and not everyone is. Some people are drawn more toward the arts or solitude or
that is true.
doing other
That is
types of
true.
things.
It is a particular mindset, and
Right.
it is true that especially today, most kids don't have, at least in our countries, don't have that kind of upbringing for two reasons. Number one is that they may live in a city, so
Right.
there's very little access to nature. It's not there, so they're not
Right.
there. And when the environment is missing, then you may have the behavior might be missing as well.
Correct. Right.
And on top of that, we have a culture and a technological reality where, from a very early age, kids are provided with electronics, tablets, and phones, and whatnot, and games, and it's kind of addictive, and they just love to do that. So they there's that part too, is the cultural aspect of it as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Growing up and being outdoors, and of course, you're probably young enough that you had electronics when you were a kid, right? Were you able to use those? Did your parents allow that stuff? Or?
So, as a matter of fact, Mark, I'm 47.
Okay,
I
there
was
you go.
born in 1971. And I was born long before smartphones, the internet. As a matter of fact, when I grew up, my TV screen was black and white with no remote control, had only two channels, and TV programs were only on Wednesdays and Saturdays, or after school. So I'm not saying that I didn't watch shows or some TV, but that was really nothing to
Yeah.
compare to be compared to what's today.
I wonder if it's your accent that made me think you were younger than you are. That's interesting. I'm
Might
I'm
be
exposing my own bias there. Wow.
might, might be the case. I know everybody tells me, you speak funny. So everybody,
You don't speak
everybody
funny.
out there, forgive me for the Frenchness in me. I'll never get rid of it, and it's okay.
That's
Like
awesome.
it will come from somewhere.
Well, I have a kinship with that. I mean, I'm only 8 years older than you, but I grew up in a small town in upstate New York and spent my summers up in the Adirondacks. Some people listening
Yeah.
have heard me tell the story, and our backyard was a lake, and so I spent all the time on and under the water, and then running around in the woods, running up mountains and bounding down,
Now
doing
that's the good stuff.
somersault and play. It's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly. but that's the good stuff, Mark, and hopefully, kids today will have the same kind of experience we did have, those
How much
generations
how
who
much do you think just risk aversion plays into this also, right? Because a lot of parents, they don't want their kids out there because there just seems to be more risk, right? There, part of it is litigation. Part of it is actually there is more danger, to just let your kids roam around the wilderness or perceived danger. And so
learning to take risks, and to take appropriate risk.
right,
That's the game. That's the name of a game. That's what a real good life is based on. Is just embrace the risk. It's how you deal with
hmm
it that matters.
hmm
It's unfortunate that a lot of parents today, they're called the helicopter parents, would want to
hmm
shield their children so much from any realistic circumstances of the real world. The real
right,
world is that's the real life. That's and
right,
through movement you can learn so much through
right.
the risk you take and the lessons you learn through experimenting on your natural movements when you're a kid. You can learn so much and you can grow so much, and to deprive kids from that experience, that's a real disservice to them and future generations.
I agree with you 100%. So, your young years, you were running around the rocks and whatnot. And then, so what happened, high school, college, and afterwards? You didn't come to the
Correct.
United States, that sounds like, until you're about 36, 37, right?
When I moved to the US, yeah, I was 38, and yeah, of course, that childhood we were talking about. That's of course there's much to it. I also
hmm
practiced a number of specialized sports, martial arts, judo, karate, and
hmm
later on, long distance triathlon and sailing, well, diving, spearfishing, and
Oh, cool.
a lot of diverse physical modalities. But what I learned a lot from them, especially from
hmm
karate, actually,
hmm
from martial arts. What I've learned
Okay.
is that if I could make my movements more systematic, more technical, if I was more mindful, if I
hmm
was in control of my breath, if I was to mindfully repeat patterns and techniques that I wanted to perfect, then
hmm
even those movements that are seen as natural, as in spontaneous, all those movements could be improved.
Right.
And so I've learned a ton through the sports and physical activities, rock climbing, you name it.
hmm
One thing that they had in common, pretty much, they are all based actually on natural movement abilities. So climbing is a natural movement ability, running is, swimming is, fighting or defending yourself is. I was really interested always in the practical side of physical activity, how
hmm
it could make me better prepared for potential circumstances of the real world.
hmm
And it is later on that in my mid 30s, that I've discovered the history of physical education
And
and
how
the
did you
method.
discover that? Did just through
Oh,
your own research, or did you stumble
oh,
upon a book, or how did you do it?
okay. So I gotta rewind a little.
Yeah.
In my early 20s, I joined a very small group, like a handful, or at most we were 15 at some point, of people around a guy who was older. He was about the age I am now, actually, and I was just barely 20. And he was very charismatic, and we would train barefoot, and we would scale bridges. No
hmm
harness, no protection whatsoever. We would jump from roof to roof. We would dive in the freezing cold in the winter. We would do all those trainings with the goal of being physically and mentally strong and healthy, thinking that we were surrounded by by a culture that just wanted us to be fully disempowered,
right.
physically and mentally, and to be weak and to not be self-reliant. So the point
Was
was,
there a particular leader of this group? I mean, how did this? That sounds awesome and profound. And so,
so
was there a mentor in there who really
yes,
helped
yes,
you?
his name was Don Ab, well, Jean Abreu was his French name. also known as Don Abré, and he wrote a little book that was well, on the cover of this book you could see him jumping off a helicopter, uh, just wearing swim trunks, and in the background there's that massive iceberg,
Awesome.
and that is 1980. He did that in 1984. Okay, so we're long,
Way,
long
way
before.
before Wim Hof.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah.
Long before that, he was training barefoot. He was back then a vegetarian. Um, a lot of the training was based on breathing drills. We were doing breathing exercises constantly,
Hmm.
and it was just not physical. Clearly, it was physical, mental, and spiritual. So he was my mentor, and this guy was not perfect in any way,
Hmm.
but I learned a lot thanks to him, but also through him because of him. But it was a very, very unique experience. Uh, you had to be ready to be a little of a side of society while also being within society, but kind of being a marginal in your mindset and lifestyle.
Hmm.
So a lot of those new trends that arise relatively recently in the last 5 or 10 years, like going barefoot, cold plunging,
Hmm.
um,
CrossFit.
yeah, well, like the idea of parkour and
Hmm.
highly functional movement.
Right.
We were doing that. We were doing Thai boxing in the underground, all kind of trainings where actually we ended up, and that's a story. We ended up being watched by the French secret services, and
Because they thought
because
you were going to be like
yep,
an uprising, right, or a
yeah,
rebellion movement.
they actually we got access to a report where they said, well, if these guys wanted to do something really bad, they can. They know how to move. They can infiltrate any building. We actually we got caught in the Louvre, the Louvre
Yeah.
museum, famous world famous museum. We got
Oh
caught
yeah.
inside of it. That's the only time we got caught actually, because we got into other buildings and nobody ever knew about it.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
How cool. Yeah.
we were training like ninjas. We were training to hold our breath, to resist cold,
And it
to
was all the whole purpose was to make you better people. It wasn't
yes,
any other
that is
purpose.
the point. There was never any intention whatsoever to do anything bad. The point was to we had the feeling that we were somewhat resisting an entire society that just wanted to submit us into irrelevance, weakness, to dumb us down, having just watching show all days and being
Hmm.
preoccupied by petty things,
Yeah.
whereas we wanted to live fully with intensity.
I think that's so cool because, to be honest, that's why I joined the Navy SEALs. I mean, to me, there was a structure for exactly what you just said, to be exceptional and to not be mediocre and not be weak and, to go against societal grains. So, did you ever think about joining the French, special forces or military, or was that something you weren't interested
So again, the story is that back then there was a mandatory military service in France.
in?
So I had to
Hmm.
go for 3 days, do tests and physical IQ and this and that. And it was just at the time I had started to follow that training.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I arrived. First off, looking at my well, that's just the way it was. They looked at my IQ and results, and they asked me if I wanted to be part of to enter the like officer academy, if I wanted to
Hmm.
become a military officer, and to which I said no, thank you. And it's and I always told them it's I fully respect you guys. It's every country, and it's a very important role in a country.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I told them I have my own self discipline, and there's nothing you can teach me.
Mm.
And I was probably wrong, but back then I thought, you know, um, you know,
Right.
you think you're it,
Right.
and you're defiant.
Right.
And what you said about the reason why you joined the SEALs, and
Hmm.
I totally understand it, and that's why I have a number of friends who are active or former SEALs, and we just get along very well because I think it's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It
so
is.
yeah, I arrived late. I had mid long hair. I was barefoot, and I was only wearing a pair of jeans and a shirt, and I had only my ID. And and everybody was looking at me like, "Who is this guy?" And the message was, "I am not here to stay." And I would do my bed perfect, except that I would do it straight on the floor. So
Uh-huh.
and I would sleep on the floor, and I would be the last to go to bed, and I would be the first to wake up, and I would basically show every form of respect, but just saying this can't do, this cannot eat. That's not my diet. I don't eat this.
Hmm.
So and I just wanted them to let them go because I wanted to do my own lifestyle, my own training,
Hmm.
and yeah. Uh, and retrospectively, I'm thinking, well, I could have done this, and I probably would have learned a lot of
Right.
precious experiences and insights in my life. But I choose a different path.
Yeah, the ego is a tricky thing, isn't it? It's like at every stage of the game, we think we've beaten the ego, only to
E-
look back and be like, "Wow, that was kind of like driving the ship back then, wasn't it?"
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But you see, that you choose to deal with a hierarchy and discipline that's above you and that tells you what to do,
Yeah, yeah,
or that you refuse that and you are basically on your own, and that's the case of many people.
yeah.
The lessons you'll have to learn, that you
Are
learn
some
them or not,
balanced.
they're the
Yeah,
same. They're the same. In
yeah.
the end, it's about self-discipline. Can you do you learn to master yourself?
Ultimately, you're right. Even in the military, all that structure, people telling you what to do left and right. If you're not in control mentally, it's hell, and so therefore you're creating your own hell. But if you're in control, it's no big deal. You just let it roll off of you. It's your own self discipline. Discipline comes from within. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, folks, you probably heard me talk about the Halo Sport before. This is one of my favorite tools to get more out of my physical training. And the company's just released a total upgrade to the product, which is half the price of the original. To remind you, this Halo Sport, produced by Halo Neuro, revolutionized physical training by being the first to introduce an electrostim device that increases your neuroplasticity, or the speed that you learn things in the movement area of your brain. It's a headset that looks just like a music headset, and it does play music, but also sends electrical stimulation to that part of your brain controlling your movement, which puts you in a state of hyper learning. So you can put these on before strength training, before practicing your martial art or MMA training, before Tai Chi, before anything that you need to develop or work with your movement or mobility. So, like I said, they made it more accessible because this new version is half the price. It's pre-selling for just $279, and you get that price if you use the code DIVINE, DIVINE, that's me, at checkout from their website. So if you go to haloneuro.com, that's HALONEURO.com, use the code DIVINE to get this upgraded version for half the price. Hoo-yah. So how did it come about for you to come to the United States? I mean, what was that transition all about?
So I in my 30s I had a little company in France, and I was profoundly bored, and it wasn't what I wanted to do in life. I just like anybody else trying to just make a living, and and I decided that I would fully dedicate myself to what I really had a true passion for. and that may sound cheesy, but at the same time, it somewhat takes balls to do it,
It does.
because you're taking risk and to just not be yourself, because I've always been myself, but to do what it is that you really want to do, regardless of what's going to be the result at a, say, a material financial level. And
I
I
agree.
made a decision. It was the best decision, and like I said, I discovered the history of physical education that was pretty much based on what I call natural movement. They didn't call it natural movement, but the
Hmm.
methods that were employed in the past were all based on practical movements.
Hmm.
So, what that means is that they were not interested in the size of your muscles or your physical appearance. They were interested in what you can do with your body, how you operate your body in the real world. So, that would
Hmm.
imply jumping and landing and running and crawling and climbing things and
Hmm.
lifting and carrying,
Hmm.
all those skills that you may use in challenging situations of the real life,
Hmm.
that you're professional or not, or that you would use, of course, in times of war. And you would say they didn't know better back then. But my question is, do
They
we
did.
actually know better today?
Right. Exactly.
It looks
Well,
like we got lost in a number of ways that are so far divorced from the realities. I like to call that the realities of the real life.
absolutely. I think we have this tendency in the West to think that technology equals better, right? And
Uh huh.
so
Uh huh.
when
It's
I
true.
grew up, just like you, when I grew up, we had PE class, physical education, and we learned gymnastics. I
Yep.
remember trying to do, muscle ups. Of course, I didn't, but I tried. Rope climbing, balance beam. We did wrestling. Phenomenal, right? Phenomenal experience.
That's a
We played
phenomenal
outside.
kind of
Yeah,
physical education right
yeah.
there, Mark.
Right. Everything that you just talked about. We learned how to run. We learned how to jump. In track, long jump. Broad jump, sprint, long run, short run, through the wilderness on a track. We learned how to play sports, kick balls and swing bats and things like that, and climb ropes and climb. I mean, it's just like it was there. And then someone invented the Nautilus, like Mr. Nautilus, probably his name. I don't know what his name was, but and all of a sudden everyone thought, oh, this Nautilus machine, that's that's what we're going to go do in regular fitness. And then the PE got taken out of the schools because it was too dangerous. We don't want someone to fall off that rope.
The problem with the Nautilus will turn you into some kind of a Nemo. Uh,
Right.
Nemo, like,
Nemo.
finding Nemo, just jump on that Nautilus and find your inner Nemo. Yeah, that's not going to make you strong.
Right. But it is really nice to see the pendulum swing back the other way. Like you said, the last 10 years, we've seen an explosion of different, kind of regimens around natural movement, animal fitness, CrossFit, your MovNat,
Yep,
even SEAL Fit, which is a hybrid of a
absolutely.
bunch of different things,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and also a movement back toward nature.
They all play a part.
They all play a part. Yeah. I got to tell a quick story here, because the obstacle race, like when I was in the SEALs, we just took obstacle racing for granted because we had an obstacle course. We had to do it every single day, and not every day, but like 3, 4 times a week in SEAL training. And then we would do it when we were at command. We would do it a couple times a week, combined with a long run or a long ruck. So
Uh
we were
huh.
always upside down or in these awkward positions and doing really cool stuff. And then I was surprised to see the sport of obstacle racing develop, and I became good friends with Joe DeSana, who's the founder of a Spartan Race. Anyways,
Yep.
my quick story. I try not to go down too far in this, but he wanted to create a certification, like a Spartan coach certification, and they have it now, but at the time they
Yep.
didn't.
Uh huh.
So he invited a bunch of different physical practitioners. I mean, if he had known about you, he would have had you there.
I was invited actually.
Oh, you
I
were?
was, yeah, I was,
Oh man.
and I declined, and not that I didn't think that they were going to do a great job. Just simply that I thought, okay, well, I got also to work on my own concept and own
Right,
method. So,
right.
but so I respectfully declined. But yeah, I was invited, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was there for a weekend with a bunch of other practitioners, and it was fascinating for me. Even though, we had I think there were like 14 people there trying to get certified. We didn't certify a single one of them, but we learned a lot, and Joe learned a lot, and he scrubbed, the way, after our feedback, he scrubbed the entire program and started over. And the guy who runs it today, was there. His name was Joe DiStefano, I think. At any rate, I was there to provide kind of like the Navy SEAL mental. How do you use physical training for mental development
Hmm.
and resiliency? And then there was this guy there from kind of like jujitsu, mat work, and he had just some of the most interesting exercises where you use another human being as your load, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
rolls and climb, like you climb around another human being without putting your feet down. Just extraordinarily challenging things.
yep,
But then
yeah,
the animal fitness guy, what an intensely cool thing, right? To move like different types of animals, kind of like kung fu, except you're really low to the ground, moving like a jaguar or a bear. I was thinking like bear crawls. And it's like a lot of the stuff we did, but it was super cool, and it really opened my mind to just how no matter how functionally fit you think you are, because I came from the CrossFit world, and CrossFitters, think that there is nobody that's fitter than them. But then they come to our SEAL Fit Kokoro camp, and they
yeah.
fail. They fail within a half a day,
I
right?
have, and again, I'm gonna have to be very tactful and respectful right there. But I have trained a number of CrossFitters, and some of them that were, at least by the CrossFit standards, highly fit.
Right,
But I knew exactly how to expose their weaknesses within literally within seconds.
right.
And it's yeah, I don't want to sound arrogant saying that or mean. It's just a reality because their levels of capacity are amazing.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
and compared to say a bodybuilder or
yeah,
the way they move, of course, is very very functional. But when you expose them to anything that they basically never train, and that
yeah,
yet we're not talking about a some kind of funky drill that's completely irrelevant and very whatever creative. I'm talking about simple. Say, okay, climb this that way. Okay, now jump there, you land there that way because that would be the contextual demand. That would be how a given environment and a given situation demands that you perform. Can you do it? And you don't have 20 or 50 repetitions to do for time. You have
right.
one shot. Can you
One
do it?
shot at it.
Boom.
Right.
No. Okay. So and not just one move. We're talking about a number of moves. So
Mm-hmm.
there are differences in training methodologies, but they stem from a difference in training approach and in the results that you're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I trained a handful of special operators in Coronado,
Mm-hmm.
and we went straight to the obstacle course. And I said, "Okay, guys, this is what we're gonna do. We're going to reverse the thing. We're gonna go backwards."
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And it was completely novel
Mm-hmm.
because you know how you have standards and performance is being measured and means that you have to repeat things and perform them in a given way. And I knew that this wouldn't teach them much, but if I was going to teach them something new, then I would have to approach it differently. And
Well,
so,
and some of the obstacles are designed to be done in a certain way, right? So if you're
yeah,
going to go up the slide for life backwards, that's going to require an entirely different skill
it,
set and setup.
exactly. All obstacles become like completely different. It's like your perception of reality
Yeah,
is
flip.
different. And I'll give you an example. For instance, passing the Burma Bridge from underneath,
Mm-hmm.
from below. We also did the
Oh,
dirty
you mean
name.
like hanging upside down,
Not
or
upside down, but the Burma. So you have your
uh
normally
huh,
you have your feet on the one horizontal
mm-hmm.
rope. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
how do you pass it hanging and traversing, just hanging from your hands below the bridge,
Below the bridge. Oh yeah.
where
Wow.
that rope where you put your feet.
Right.
And if you try to do that using strength, which we called in our method the power traverse, it's so long that you might be exhausted by the
Mm-hmm.
time you even reach the other end. But if you use
Mm-hmm.
what we call the side swing traverse, which is one of our techniques, you'll do it as fast or almost as fast, but you will do it without exhausting your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So this approach of passing those obstacles in a different way gave me opportunities to teach them techniques they had not been taught, and
Mm-hmm.
to up their game a little. And again, though, those guys are spectacular. They are unbelievable. Number one, they are real gentlemen, not cocky guys, like
Mm-hmm.
they're just really super polite, very respectful, and they are minds of steel, and they are just super physically fit.
Mm-hmm.
But there are aspects of techniques that they may not have been taught, and that they can help them perform better. So that was one example. Another example was the dirty name, and it's called the dirty
Mm-hmm.
name. You would try to
Mm-hmm.
pass it, you hurt yourself so bad, you
Mm-hmm.
break a rib or something, and then you yell and you curse. Um, uh, so it's those
Been
three.
there, done that.
For people who don't know, they're like those three elephantine beams, like very thick wood
Right.
logs at different heights, going up, and you got to jump
Low,
between
medium,
one
high. Right.
to the other. And I tell them, okay, so now you missed it, but not fully. You're still hanging to that log, and so now you have two choices. One is that you decide that, okay, I'm gonna just jump down, and second is that you decide to that you would be in a situation where you just cannot afford to let go and jump down. You have to find a
Mm-hmm.
way to overcome and to mount on top. So what
Mm-hmm.
what do you do? And that's when I taught them the pop-up technique, where it's
Mm-hmm.
basically a form of muscle up that you do, but hanging not from your hands, but from your forearms.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it worked right away because they are super fast learners,
Right.
super strong, super ready. So it was really cool for me to be able to add a few strokes and to their arsenal of movement equipment, if I may say.
Mm-hmm. That's neat. So let's talk a little bit about the MovNat training, like what it is you're hoping to accomplish. I think we've really covered that. People probably get a sense already. Natural movement, bringing it back. But let's talk a little bit about the how. And I would like you to start by, because I've been a lifelong martial artist too, and I was reading your website, and I was really enthralled when I saw that you relate MovNat training to like the three different modes of training in a real traditional martial art. And that would be, and I don't have the words probably just right for at least the beginning one, but the refinement of basics, a very specific skill that you refine over and over and over with breath and mindfulness. And
Yes.
then the second would be like the kata, which is a stringing together of different refined movements where you have to, first memorize them and then ultimately you do them with that shibumi or effortless perfection. And then the third is like kumite, where you are doing it with against another human being, or let's say against nature. So how do you employ? Did I get that right? And how do you employ those training
Oh yeah, you
techniques?
have very good points and very great insights into explaining what the MovNat method is about, Mark. So yeah, the comparison with martial art is extremely relevant, and this is why. The same way you won't go in a bar and start a brawl and be a jerk to people to start a fight, and that's not how you learn to be a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you learn to be a fighter. That could be how you maybe test your skills,
Mm-hmm.
but not how you acquire them.
Right.
You need to go see to train with a teacher and a group of people who are dedicated to, well, first off, controlling their emotions, but also to controlling their body. So in martial arts, the foundation is always technique. It's breath control, and then it's the pattern of each and every technique that you need to learn, starting with the easier ones, then progressing to more difficult ones. And through the practice of your techniques and skills on the mat, that it is ground movement or striking or a mix of that, you will acquire already most of the strength and conditioning that you need, and that is symbiotically developing and associated with those techniques that you learn. Now, if you apply that to natural movement, then that's the way it works. That's why we have a MovNat method. The idea is that just because it's natural, like jumping, climbing, balancing, crawling, running, everyone can do that, at least to some extent. The same way anyone can throw punch or try to avoid one or try to wrestle, and doesn't mean that you're good. Doesn't mean you're efficient, because those are innate abilities, and we all possess them. But now
Right.
it's gonna be it's gonna take practice and mindful practice to turn those innate instinctual abilities into second nature skills,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that are highly efficient. And that's what we do. We place technique first.
What are some of the most basic techniques that you would begin to teach a new student?
Breath control.
Okay, that's the beginning. That's where we start too. By the way,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Music
that's
to my ears. I love that.
well, of course. I mean, we're truth seekers, and in the end, that research is going to take us to the same fundamental and universal principles.
That's right.
So, breath. If you don't control your breath, it doesn't matter. The rest is just not going to be as efficient as you could. Breath control is not just about controlling the body; it's about controlling the mind. It's learning to be
Right.
mindful with an internal movement. That's what
Mm-hmm.
breathing is. It's an internal movement, and when you got that foundation, then you can start to look at external movement
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
the rest of your whole body while maintaining breath control. And that's the key point, is that we don't do breath control on the spot, with, I don't know, a little bell and some incense and a candle, and all of that go through the roof or through the window the moment you start moving. If you're gonna learn breath control, it's especially so that you can maintain such control when movement becomes complex, more intense, and the intensity and complexity of a movement happens not just when you are, say, doing more complex movements, but when you are physically interacting with more complex environments. Right? Say, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you do jumps on the spot, and you're like, this is great, it's plyometrics, it's great for stamina, and
Mm-hmm.
I have to control my breath.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna be audible, and that's cool. Now, you are running through the woods, and all of a sudden there's a gap, and you get to jump with momentum between that rock, be airborne over that obstacle, and then you gotta land, and you got then to resume running right away
Mm-hmm.
without a pause, and you've never been there before, maybe, and now your heart is racing, and now you start to maybe panic in your head, and then your breath is out of whack. You don't control
Mm-hmm.
anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now you see there is an element of challenge here, that is the environment, the context, and it changes
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Right.
We love that idea of mind body connection, but there's a new kid on the block right there. It's the mind body environment connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have, and that's one example of movements you could do in the real world, like jumping between two obstacles. uh, when you have to do that, you can't dismiss the risk, the potential danger, and the fact that there's a physical environment right there in front of you. You can't deny that. You can't dismiss it. You can't just close your eyes and say, I'm mindful. Now, show how mindful you are right there. Show how you control your mind, control your body, and control your breath so that you can jump and land safely without panicking, without losing your means, your nerves. And that's something you know very well, Mark, because of your background that is so just so unique and so just admirable. But this is what we teach people without having to to take them to extreme circumstances or battlefields.
Yeah. It seems like you just, when you add the environment, or let's say even in the gym environment. So if you take, let's say, jumping, like you just said, jumping from, over an object, that's one skill. You keep on refining that, working with breath and mindfulness. Now you want to run and then jump and then roll. Now that's more like a kata, right? That's where you're starting to string different movements together spontaneously or in a structured way. First structured and then more spontaneous, right?
All right.
Is
So
that
the
kind of the progression?
yeah, you need progressions, and that's why you can call
Right,
it a method. There is
right, right.
anything you want to acquire in life, you got to be patient, and it's always a
Mm-hmm,
progressive process that it happens fast or rather slowly. It doesn't matter. It will you have to go through progression. So
mm-hmm,
first, you learn the patterns, you learn the techniques. So like you guys do in your method, and there are obviously parallels. We teach breathing. So number one, you control your breath, you control your mind, and the clarity of the intention. And then secondly, you are going to go through the movement patterns, and any of those patterns can be improved.
mm-hmm,
It's just like breathing. Actually, what is more natural than breathing? Everybody does it,
mm-hmm,
but and yet a lot of people would tremendously benefit relearning or learning for the first time efficient ways to breathe.
right.
If this applies to the most natural movement, which is breathing, why wouldn't it apply to any other movements that seem natural to us that starts with standing and walking? And when you go on all
Mm-hmm,
fours, there are different patterns. You can roll in diverse directions. So you can get up and get down in diverse ways with your both hands, one hand, no hand. There are a great number of techniques and a great number of movement variations. So you learn the techniques first with very simplified environments. So just flat, say flat surface, flat floor or
mm-hmm,
ground. When it comes to balancing, you learn that on a 2x4 on
mm-hmm,
at ground level.
right.
Then you will increase the complexity of the environment. So, say when it comes to balancing, you will start to have a balancing surface that is slightly elevated
Mm-hmm,
and then increasingly elevated. And then you want to think of other variables that you could throw in the mix that will keep challenging your skill. So the surface could become rounded, it could
mm,
become more narrow, it
right.
could then be at a certain angle, inclined or declined. And then it could also be slightly unstable.
Mm,
And
interesting.
and this principle of the progression in external variables, environmental or contextual variables, enables you to keep refining your skills, but with an increased challenge that comes from external variables, external demands. And that is exactly what the real world uh, provides to you.
Mm-hmm,
You know the difference between meditating in a place that is, say, indoors and made for it and completely isolated,
mm-hmm,
silent, dim light, and all of that. And it's a beautiful thing to do. Now, you try to meditate when there is loud people around you, you're, say, in a train station, whatever,
mm-hmm,
or young kids around you.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
been there.
it's the next level. And you can't say, oh, no, there's no way I can meditate here. That's not the proper context. But the real Zen master will laugh at you because that's exactly what it is about. So, same thing with movement training. There's nothing wrong with gyms. There's nothing wrong with indoors. There's nothing wrong with simplified environments for training, as long as you see them as, ground level, beginner level, basically, where ultimately you will have to bring your skills to facing increasingly difficult variables, so that ultimately you are ready for the real world. You will be prepared for jumping a real obstacle in a real situation, for running 10 miles if you have to on uneven terrains, maybe without shoes, maybe in the cold. And that's the say that's the higher or highest level of practice, obviously, and this is in no way where most people should begin. But
Right.
ultimately, you got to free yourself of the gym, and
Right.
you got to embrace the real world.
I totally agree.
Hey, folks, I've got a new, very cool health product I want to tell you about. I only allow sponsors in here for products that I have used and I think are valuable. This one is called Mud Water. What an interesting name, Mud Water. It doesn't make you want to eat it, but I tell you what, it is extremely healthy. So I don't know about you, but there's something about the morning ritual of drinking coffee that is pretty nice. But what if you could get the same effect and drink something completely healthy that's made out of all sorts of healthy materials and give you a great effect of focusing and not having the crash that comes with the coffee? So the ingredients include adaptogenic mushrooms, cacao, chai, turmeric, cinnamon, and sea salt. This product, is basically just like mixing up a chai drink or something like that. It mixes very easily with water. You can drink it hot or cold. You can use it in your smoothie if you want. It helps reduce anxiety and jitters that you get from coffee. It doesn't deplete your adrenal glands. In fact, it'll support your adrenal glands and your immune system. These guys are offering 50% off. That's extremely generous. 50% off for Unbeatable Mind podcast listeners. So check them out at mudwtr.com. So it sounds like water, but it's missing the A and the E. mudwtr.com. And use the code LION, LION, when you check out. So I love their tagline. They said, "We're not mad at coffee, just disappointed." We're not mad at coffee, just disappointed. And yes, I still drink coffee, but I also will drink the mud. So that's another approach too. All right, check it out. Mudwater.com, mudwtr.com, 50% off for you. And use the code LION, lion, and drink it and roar. Hoo-yah. Thank you.
There's so many parallels, except for, I mean, obviously it's some very distinct differences, but with SEAL fit, most people don't understand that SEAL, it's not the animal that the Navy was referring to, even though we have Sammy the SEAL as one of our mascots. It's an acronym for sea, air, land.
Yep.
And so our whole, when we start people training, it's like, we're training here to get out of the gym and into the environment. And our environments are the sea, the air, and the land. So you need to learn how to not just survive, but thrive in each of those environments. And so that's your message to people is you'd have to get out of the gym. Don't look at that as it's a means to the end. The end is to be healthy and whole and joyful
Yes. Yes,
in the
exactly.
environment. I love that.
You put it
That is brilliant.
perfectly, Mark. It's very true. You asked me that question early on, and why is it that I'm doing this? And when I was younger, and I would go to a park, and I would do my training, and clearly that's not something that anybody back then, and still today, by the way, could identify truly. Could say, "Oh, the guy's doing tai chi, or
Mm-hmm.
yoga, or some other form of known, established practice that is known to the mainstream, and therefore, it doesn't matter if you practice it yourself. If you see somebody else doing it, you know exactly what it is. that it
Right.
is seen or done or seen in the proper environment, like the dojo or the yoga studio, or that it is done
Mm-hmm.
outside, you could tell, okay, I know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see a grown up person climbing a tree, jumping off the tree to a roll, to sprinting, and then to crawling on all fours, and you are probably wondering, what on earth is
What's
that guy doing?
right?
Oh man, is it like trying to be Rambo or something? And
But it sure looks fun.
it does. Actually, you know who understood the population that really, really understand this right away are kids. Kids,
Yes.
they see you do that. First off, they're kind of baffled because you're not a kid and they never see
Right.
grown-ups doing that. But they want to join. It's a language they understand. It's natural movement.
Right.
And so this was my stance. How come that the most ancient, the most universal form of movement behavior, which is natural movement, you crawl, you jump, you balance, you climb, why is it that it, it's not even known by most people? There's no mainstream recognition for it.
Mm-hmm.
And and I knew that it used to be practiced and trained. There used to be methods in the past. We're talking about 100 years ago, 200 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
back to Mercurialis and then the ancient Greeks and
Mm-hmm.
all their trainings. They were all based on those skills. So
Right.
I decided, I proclaimed to myself and to the universe out there that I would be the person to bring that idea of natural movement to the mainstream. I was that, I don't know, you would call that
Audacious.
ambitious.
Yeah.
You could call that delusional. But the thing is, it's a vision, and nothing can stop a vision. And right now, as we speak, it's unfolding, and it becomes a
Yeah.
reality, and many more. So I can tell you, Mark, that this idea of natural movement is on its way to become mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Finally,
Yeah. I
justice.
agree with you. I applaud your vision and your audacity, and I thank you for it. And I join you, right? And so part of the reason for this podcast is to help spread the word, and I'll declare that I'm going to come train with you because I want to learn what you can teach me, which I know is quite a bit, and I'd be happy to reciprocate there. And some of our seal fit mental techniques, maybe find one thing to add to your MovNat language.
Mark,
Wouldn't that be a fun share?
Mark, I would
Yeah.
love to, and thank you for suggesting this. I would love to, and whenever we do this, and I will learn from you as much as you maybe learn from me. So that's always an exciting prospect when you
Yeah.
are a person who is all about self-actualization, self
Yeah.
optimization. You remain a student for life. You may become a teacher, but you
Right.
won't stop learning, and
That's right.
it's a beautiful thing. And
Every
this is what we invite people. We kind of want to inspire and educate people to embrace that very simple mindset in their life, so that they too
Yeah.
can thrive. They can have a better life.
Yeah. Lifelong learning. That's awesome.
Yep.
You have a book, The Practice of Natural Movement, that can be found at Amazon and
Yep.
places where books are sold. Okay, good.
Right. Barnes and Nobles and some bookstores now, and yeah.
I'm going to order my copy as soon as I hang up here. Awesome. So, and people can find you at, is it MovNat.com, MovNat.com?
Exactly. That's MovNat.com. We are the organization and the method for natural movement practice. We teach people, we certify people. We have thousands and thousands of certified trainers around the
Nice.
world because we've been at it for years. We also have a growing number of licensed gyms who are just fully dedicated to making people fit and stronger, but also
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable movers, only exclusively using this method and this approach.
One last question. I imagine, I'm 55, but super, pretty fit, and I'm not, I don't feel like I would have any limitations. But for folks who are over 50, are there any limitations, or can you learn this stuff at any age?
Every person is obviously different at the your biological age, at a physiological level. and it doesn't matter your age. You could be 55 and rock it much better than a young guy or girl who's in their 20s, never really had any form of physical education or physical background, and that on top of that are also not having the best lifestyle, and it's hurting them.
Hmm.
So they may not be
Right.
in a better position than you. They might be in a not as good position as you are. So let's
Hmm.
say age is relatively, I'm not saying it's not relevant, I'm saying it's only partly relevant.
Hmm.
Also, natural movement, there's no natural movements for older people and some for younger people, or some for, say, elite athletes and
Hmm.
others for regular people. We're all regular people when it comes to
Hmm.
natural movement. Again,
Hmm.
all those skills belong to all of us universally since birth and since the dawn of mankind. What's going to be different is where we start, the intensity at which we start, how fast we can make progress,
Hmm.
volume, and those kinds of considerations. It's basically, and that's why we have a method. We're going to practice the same skills. We're going to practice pretty much the same techniques, even though some are more advanced than others. And what's going to differ is the context, the environmental
Hmm.
part of it. Do you do that with more volume, more intensity, or on surfaces that are more challenging? Well, yes, if you're ready, and not, and no if you're not ready. So
Hmm.
we
Right.
look at the progressions. So
Right.
yeah,
And I
and this is,
imagine. Sorry.
sorry. Well, and this is determined by just looking at how you move.
Right.
You know?
So you'll assess someone and help them kind of
Exactly. You just use your
start at the right
eyes.
place and progress.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's
Movement behavior is the screen. It's the assessment. It tells us if you're ready or
and
not.
like with any functional movement, the benefits are going to be greater mindfulness, overall integrative health, greater happiness, peace of mind. Out in nature, you're going to just have all the benefits of that. And although probably we haven't tested this yet, but it's quite certain longevity because you'll have less injuries, you'll be more mobile, you'll be overall systemically healthy as we age. So,
Yeah.
if I imagine someone who spends a lifetime of functional fitness these days is going to be able to be like the 100-year-old yogi who's still stretchy bendy and moving, quite well.
Well, exactly. And all health practices and choices, they only help you with your longevity in the sense that they prevent you from aging faster than you should because
Right.
of your unhealthy choices. That's
That's right.
pretty much what it is. So yeah, and there's, of course, there's more to being healthy than your natural movement. Uh, but if you are looking for a very potent entry point in reclaiming a healthy lifestyle, a healthy body, a happy mind, a self confident, composed mind with great levels of energies, natural movement, that's definitely a very, very potent getaway. Oh, not a getaway, but entry point. And getaway into the lifestyle that maybe has been causing you a number of ailments physically or even
Mm-hmm.
psychologically, and that you want out of. It's and there are plenty. We agree. There are so many modalities out there, but the
But
the
this
behavior.
is
Yeah.
it's complementary also to, let's say, like I'm a lifetime yogi and martial artist. I practice Aikido, Tai Chi, and yoga right now, along with my functional fitness. And I don't look at this as MovNat as something I'm starting a whole new thing. I look at it as complementary. These are all natural movements. Some are used for health, some are used for defense, some are used for different things. But so why not learn
Yeah. So you want to look at
more?
at these two ways. One is the core purpose of why you would try and move that, and that is, again, it's equipping yourself with a full range of not only the skills, the competency, but also the capacity, the physical conditioning, the strength and conditioning that you need to be capable in the real world. That's the core purpose. That's the kind of physical education I wish everyone would receive, will learn in school and develop in school, but it's not the case. So we have to rebuild somewhat. Often we have to build grown-ups from scratch in that regard of real-world physical capability. Then you want to look at the derived benefits, which are, again, levels of energies, health, well-being, all of that. That, yeah, it's true. You can have those beneficial effects through other modalities. But if you're looking at, again, that capability we're talking about, where, because look, when you do martial arts, yeah, you want to be, there are benefits you're looking at, but primarily what it is that you want to be doing and ready for. You want to be able to defend yourself. So you are going to acquire that by doing martial arts. And you know that just training on the mat is not enough, because a fight could be stand up, and just finding standing up is not enough, because a fight can easily and rapidly go to the mat or could go to the ground. But so you're looking at the realistic, the realism of your training, and that's the core purpose. Before you're like, yeah, also doing it because it makes me feel good, and great levels of energy, more self-confidence, all those are awesome. But number one, you want to be able to defend yourself. So apply that to other areas of life where you could be surprised by unexpected circumstances, where you are all of a sudden you have to carry a person on your back and walk 3 miles with them, or you have to jump for your life, you have to climb for your life, not just run for your life. Maybe you'll have to fight for your life or swim for your life. And so all of that, and of course challenging situations of the real life, because nobody is shielded from those. It can happen to anyone anytime. And then of course the day-to-day ability to operate your body very well. Like, for instance, can you even deep squat, and can you even, from a standing position, sit down and then stand back up without using your hands for support, and in more than one way? Can you do that or not? And if you can't, then you already have clearly a diminished function. And the question is, do you want to address that or not?
Right. Awesome. Well, we've been going for an hour. We could probably use an hour, but
Goodness.
I think we'll throw in the red flag. This has been fascinating. Wow. So MovNat.com. The book is The Practice of Natural Movement by Erwan Le Corre. Erwan, I can't wait to meet you in person. And
likewise, Mark. Likewise, and I want to thank our good common friend Michael Osterlenk.
Yeah, thank you,
for making that connection. And I want to also really say how appreciate people like you, Mark, who are doing something good in the world and have really hard heart, are on a mission to help people out, um, with some form of inspiration, but also with methods to educate them and just provide them the tools they need to live a great life. So you're doing a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job, Mark.
Oh, yeah. So are you, and I appreciate your work as well. And thanks again for your time. We'll see you in the future.
Soon, see you soon in the future, Mark. Thank you.
All right, folks. You heard it, Erwan Le Corre, MovNat. That was not only extraordinarily interesting, but man, so true. Let's just put it that way. So I'm going to go to MovNat. I'm going to go to do a cert, or I'm going to go train with him. So join me. We'll figure it out. But or at least take a look at the principles and think about how you can integrate natural movement into your life. It's very, very important, and have benefits well beyond the physical. All right, but you know all that because we talk about that a lot here at Unveiled Mind. Once again, I thank you for your time and attention. Remember, this is not a hack. It's not quick. You do the work every day. Show up so you can grow up, and then clear up your past emotional baggage so you can open up your heart and crush it. Be unbeatable. See you next time. Bye now.
Lock and load, boys. Time to explode, boys. Make sure you get home, boys. They got your back. The pride of the fleets. The bright swinging frog men of the UT.